Illinois is not flashy. They don't have a rich history of winning, but they are in the Big Ten. Every now and then they could pop their head up like a gopher on Groundhog's Day and say, what's this? What are we doing here? And then sometimes it feels like they pop back down. That's what the 3 years have been so far with Bret Bielema at the helm. Did you know, right as I said that Bret Bielema is going into year 4 as Illinois' football coach? His 4th year in Illinois. That's a pretty solid amount of time. Now, this is not a hot seat discussion segment of college football because I don't think that that's actually warranted right now. Certainly the standard at Illinois has been raised above where it was at when Lovie Smith was in charge. So Bielema, I think, overall is fine. He's going into his 4th year. He's 18-19 at the helm, but they were, kind of underground, as in not in a bowl game, year 1, 5-7. They popped their head up, 8-5 year 2. Then they went back down a little bit, 5-7 year 3. No real major marquee wins a season ago. I am intrigued by their early season matchup at Kansas. We'll get to their schedule a little bit more later. But the question I ask about teams and programs like Illinois that are non-traditional powers is, are they just bound year in and year out to never rise up to the top? Are they just going to be mediocre or at the bottom? Is that all we're ever going to get from certain programs in college football? Maybe. I wasn't going to say Vanderbilt on today's show, but guess what? I brought him up. And so Vanderbilt is, of course, the quintessential example of, someone's got to finish in last or close to last every single year. So Illinois has not had a recruiting cycle that's going to blow you out of the water necessarily. That doesn't mean there can't be an expectation of winning for the Fighting Illini this year because they've brought in 7 transfers. Now, if I asked you, based on what you saw with Illinois a season ago, where are those transfers going to arrive from? Where do they need to place a heavy emphasis? Where would you think? For the second straight year, they're going to have a top 10, 15 pick in the NFL draft, this time coming along the defensive line. Well, they should probably revamp in the trenches a little bit. Well, they could use some players. You could probably look at a number of different places on Illinois' roster and say they could be better here, they could be, better over there. Bret Bielema knows what he wants. And this offseason, he was able to, it would appear, accomplish his goals in that respect. Because they brought in 7 transfers. And clearly, Bret Bielema's goal of going out to find starting caliber players, which is what you're doing in the transfer portal. There are very few developmental transfers, right? With quarterbacks, it can happen. You think Julian Sayin going to Ohio State. You think Dante Moore going to Oregon. You think Austin Mack going to Alabama. Those are developmental transfers, but at other positions, you're bringing in guys to make an impact right away. 7 transfers, 6 of them are either offensive or defensive linemen. Is there another transfer portal like that, or transfer portal class like that in all of college football? If so, I have not yet been made aware of it. And guess what? The 7th transfer is a tight end. 6 linemen and a tight end. What do you think Bret Bielema wants to do? Let's make sure his team is as physically ready and capable as possible to compete in the Big Ten. Because you have a lot of Iowas or an Ohio State or a Michigan or an Oregon now that want to come in, win in the trenches, punch you in the mouth. I think Minnesota, Wisconsin, it's just part of the Big Ten identity. So I found that to be, amusing's not the right word, but it piqued my interest when I saw, wow, they didn't add any skill position guys on the perimeter on either side of the ball. Now, maybe that changes in the spring transfer portal window. April 15th, transfer portal will open again. Players can put their names in. They can go to different schools. We'll see who doesn't like where they stand in spring practice and all of college football. But let's get back to Illinois. They had a weird season last year, right? 8-5 the year prior. Things are feeling good. Then all of a sudden, they're fighting to make a bowl game, and they lose each of their last 2 games by 2 points apiece. And that kept the Illini from making a bowl game, those 2 games. What do you think the scores of those games were? If I said you lost back-to-back games by 2 points, What do you think the scores of those games were? Try 15-13 and 45-43 on for size. There were 2 games last year that Illinois participated in which both teams scored over 40 points. They went 1-1 in those games. There were 2 games in which the total number of points scored, maybe something you bet over with our friends at FanDuel, was under 30 points. They were 0-2 in those games. This is an Illinois team that struggled to score consistently, but also struggled to defend consistently, but was also kind of just good enough on both sides of the ball from time to time to almost make a bowl game in a pretty tough Big Ten. So I don't think that Illinois is going to bottom out this year. But do I see them making the leap forward that they would like to have in Bret Bielema's 4th year? That depends on Luke Altmyer, their quarterback, who some of you may know, some of you may not. He missed a game or 2 last year with an injury. When he played, let's just say there were some mixed results. There was great potential. There was also some not as great material to put on film. He ended the year with 13 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. Now, I am not an analytics guru. I am also not ignorant to the fact that statistically, a 1.3 touchdown to interception ratio is not very good. That has to improve. But over the second half of the year, he showed why he was the starting quarterback, why he likely will be the starting quarterback again in 2024, because the potential is there. Remember, he was once upon a time playing at Ole Miss. Do you think Ole Miss has got good offensive staffs, historically speaking? Yeah, I think they do. When you look at what Altmyer did last year, there was a little Jekyll and Hyde to his game. Because in the first 3 games of the year, in which the only win was, let's just say, not one for the history books necessarily, but a couple of losses, including one to Kansas, another one to Penn State, Luke Altmyer threw 7 interceptions in those 3 games. And his team went 1-2. And then down the stretch, you started to see the potential. You started to see a glimmer, a possibly starting capable quarterback who's not at the bottom of Big Ten quarterback rankings, not at the top, but somewhere in the middle. Can he be more of a guy that is somewhere in the middle? That's an interesting question to ask. Because over the last 4 games that he started, his team went 2-2. That's pretty solid considering it was against all Big Ten teams there. He had 8 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. So if that is able to be rolled over the course of an entire season and he stays healthy, what's Illinois going to be this year? Well, their schedule, not a cakewalk, not a gauntlet, but you got 3 games on here that I have a hard time seeing Illinois winning right off the bat. You go at Penn State, at Oregon, and you go at Oregon the week after you host Michigan. Now, Michigan's a pullback team this year, but are they pulling back to where Illinois is at? No, I don't think so. So those are 3 games right off the top where Illinois is going to be at a significant roster disadvantage from a talent standpoint. Now, are they at a quarterback disadvantage in all of those games? I'd take Drew Aller over Luke Altmyer. I'd take Dylan Gabriel over Luke Altmyer. I don't know about Alex Orji at Michigan because no one knows anything. Anyone who tells you, well, he's going to be this, well, you can guess. That's great. But until we actually see him play on the field, we don't know. But those 3 games, I don't think Illinois is coming out with a victory there. Here's how their schedule starts. Eastern Illinois, they should win that game, played at Memorial Stadium in Champaign. Then they host Kansas. You want to talk about a fascinating non-conference game that'll fly under the radar? Kansas, seen by many, including our friends at FanDuel, as a team that can win the Big 12 this year. They're capable, perhaps, of doing so with Lance Leipold and Jalen Daniels once again at the helm. But if Illinois is going to take that step forward, that game's going to be a good indicator. I don't think they have to win that game to have a better record than they did last year or finish towards the middle of the Big Ten. But you have to at least show something to your fans and to yourselves that you can go out there and play with a team that's going to contend for a conference championship. Granted, in the Big 12, not as strong. The statement still stands. If Illinois were in the Big 12, yeah, they would love to be contending for a conference championship. They host Central Michigan after that, so that'll be at least 2 wins in their first 3 games. If it's 3 wins, boy, don't sleep on the Fighting Illini now. They go at Nebraska against year 2 Matt Rule. Do you want to face year 2 Matt Rule on the road? We'll find out. We'll see if Dylan Raiola is that sort of guy at quarterback, but that's not the easiest way to start Big Ten play. At Nebraska, then at Penn State, before you host Purdue, host Michigan, then go at Oregon? Yikes. Yikes, yikes, yikes. Their bye comes in between a couple of home games after the Oregon game. They host Minnesota, bye. They host Michigan State. Michigan State game's interesting, to say the least. And then they go at Rutgers, at Northwestern. I'm not crazy about the Illini here. I don't know if I feel strongly about their win total of 5.5. I don't think I feel strongly one way or the other because there are a lot of questions on this schedule. Like, how good can Aiden Childs be in his first year with Jonathan Smith at Michigan State? What is David Braun's follow-up act going to be at Northwestern? Is Greg Schiano once again a bowl team with Rutgers? Those are the final 3 games. How does PJ Fleck bounce back at Minnesota after going 5-7 but getting into a bowl game last year? I don't expect a big upset here from the Illini. Michigan, Penn State, Oregon, every other game, yeah, I'd give them a fighting chance. You could say, all right, I need to end the show right there, right here, right now. Illinois fans, please forgive me. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. And until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.